Welcome to another edition of Everyone Hates Cleveland, the podcast. I don't know, maybe we shouldn't call it that anymore. I feel like it's been actually a year now since EHC has gone away. Maybe we need a new name.
It's kind of hard.
Maybe we should call it. Nothing ever really goes away, Mike. We're still
the things
here.
We lost in the fire, Jim. The things we lost in the fire.
We're still alive. That's all that counts. Which is kind of the motif for the Indians this year. We're still alive in first place. Okay, I'm not going to start it off that way. We haven't talked in a while. They're on a 5-game win streak. We got lots of fun stuff to talk about. I'm just going to start off with something that I want to start off with. I usually kind of kowtow. First of all, Mike, how the hell are you?
I'm pretty delightful right now. I'm swell.
Delightful and swell. Mike is the 85-year-old in a 20-year-old body. That's great. All right.
First of all, this is not a 20-year-old body. Let's be honest. Well, this thing is a 45-year-old body.
So an 84-year-old in a 45-year-old body who's really 24. Let's just leave it at that. All right. Let's talk Indians. We haven't talked in a while. There's a lot we could get into in between the last time we talked about talk Tribe. But let's not go there. So we'll start with some fun stuff. I want to talk Danny Salazar, Mike, and I could get snarky with this, but I'm not going to, because honestly, his most recent start, that 7-inning, no walk, 8K, 86 pitch, out of nowhere start, even surprised me, who might be the builder of the bandwagon for Danny Salazar. Where did that come from? This is a guy who a year ago was a fantastic starter, made the All-Star game, and that's when everything started kind of falling apart for Salazar. How does he come literally out of nowhere with this kind of revisit to that first half of last year?
I think Joe did an awesome job. Joe Gerbury, a recent edition of WFNY, talking to Salazar, and Salazar revealed that, it's the first time he's felt really that close to healthy, which is outstanding. That's really positive. I also, there's a part of me that I just think Danny Salazar is really pissed off at the Cleveland Indians. To be honest, I think he was showing Indians management as much as he was showing anyone else. He's someone who was moved to the bullpen. It caused more arm issues. They gave him a really short leash for a guy who has been a really good starter in his career. And, some stuff pointed to just he was kind of unlucky in the early going. I mean, he wasn't, certainly exceptional, but I don't know, Jim. He's super talented. When he's at 95%, he's amazing. I mean,
well, so the knock on Salazar over the years, other than health, has been, he's only got 2 pitches. And let's be square with this. And I mean, the truth of the matter is, and we could get into the variance of his pitches because he's definitively got more than 2, but let's just go with that. Let's run with the just 2 pitches. The difference between Salazar in this past start and Salazar really the first half of the season is, let's be honest, he threw more fast. He threw more 4-seamers. It was actually insane. He was throwing, I think, 70% as opposed to 56% prior to that in all of his other starts. Is this a way to keep his arm healthy, or is this them just saying, throw hard, that's what you do?
Yeah, I also think he had bought into this sort of bullshit narrative. One of the things we talk about with really good pitchers is like them dialing it up late in games and stuff. And I think there was this thing in Salazar where he felt like he should just run it like 92, 93 in the first, mix a couple of things, just get through. And if you look at his splits, they were awful early in the game because he was throwing his 75th percentile stuff. And so, when he's aggressive early, it's huge. And second of all, he doesn't have to throw the changeup that much early because he can have success throwing 96. And that sets up the changeup better later in the game, sequencing-wise, when you're messing with speed like that. So I think him just being aggressive is really key. And playing up that velo, he's going to be great. And honestly, they don't need – I know I'm already talking about the playoffs. I know we have 60 games left. I know the Royals are a game and a half back. But if he's your Game 3 starter, you need 5 good innings. And so he can empty the chamber for 5 innings. That's fine. 90 pitches, 5 innings. He can empty the chamber, and then we're going to turn it over. Or, you know, he and Clev can piggyback or do something really creative, but, like, he can empty the chamber early in games, and that's what they need from him. So I definitely think that's the right approach.
All right, let's stick with rotation. I want to focus in on Corey Kluber, and it's not a painful discussion other than the fact that if you look at his numbers today, they're very similar to his numbers from 2015 when he won the Cy Young. We've had several conversations, Mike, about how that was a once-in-a-lifetime season. His K per nine is up 2 miles per hour from that year. His walk rate is up a smidge, maybe 0.15, maybe 0.2 from that 2015 Cy Young season. His FIP and XFIP are, I think, both sitting at 2.46 right now. I don't have the numbers in front of me. I did something about this yesterday. I think that's where they're sitting. The XFIP, I believe, is lower than it was in 2015. The FIP is a little bit higher, but they're all right there. This truly is a Corey Kluber resurgence. He's back to that pitcher, and I know a lot of people are probably going to listen to this and say, well, he's been the same pitcher as the past 2 seasons as he was 2 years ago, and blah, blah, blah.
They can fuck off.
Well, I mean, he hasn't. Well, and he hasn't. He truly hasn't been. I mean, if you look at his numbers, they have not been better. I mean, if you look at the trends, this shouldn't be happening, and all of a sudden it is. What are we seeing here? Is this just a miss on our part, or is this, which it looks like, or is, and the season's not over yet, but is Kluber just that good? Is this a guy who you can't really measure?
Yeah, this season's insane. Swinging, like he's way above his K per nine. He's incredibly efficient. I think the other thing that we don't talk about enough this year too, we bitch and moan a lot about the rotation. I'm using awful language. My sincerest apologies to those who have better expectations of who I am as a person, but that's life.
Well, we do have a big 13 to 18-year-old viewership, so
a better censor. But where I'm going with this is, if you look at, I think a lot of times we've been killing our rotation because the FIPS are down and the ERAs are higher this year at the back end. I think one of the things we're not noticing is in this fly ball revolution, in this, like potentially ball altered revolution, pitching league wide is shooting up in terms of, what a good performance is. It used to be a league average starter ran a FIP in the high 3s. Now, Clevenger's a league average starter and his FIP's 4.2. And he's pitching really well. He's been really good, and that's where Salazar is too. And I'm totally cool with that. And I guess my point here is for Kluber to have lowered his FIP and XFIP and keep them close to what they were in that Cy Young season. I mean, he's not going to win the Cy unless Chris Sale falls off a horse, cuts himself while he's trying to cut up jerseys, has a scissor incident. That's not happening. But he's been exceptional, and it's insane. And honestly, I'm really happy I was wrong. And also I'm happy I expected that he wouldn't do this. He's 33. Guys don't get better at 33, and he has. And he defied the aging curve, and that's why it's a curve and not an aging line and rule. It's not binding. There are outliers, and he's an outlier, and it's awesome.
Well, we've got the ace and Carlos Carrasco. It's funny, Carrasco, and I don't want to get into Carrasco too much. He's pitched really well, but has had some up and downs this year. It's been having Kluber, especially after his usage last year in the playoffs. My concern with him is going to be down the stretch. They're using a 6-man rotation right now. It's apparently temporary, which is sad for me because I look back to last year, Mike, and you see Corey Kluber, the one healthy pitcher throughout the season. He makes it all through the year, and then they use him. And in fairness, they were pulling him in after 6 in games that they were leading, but a lot of usage in the playoffs. Are you concerned at all, especially with these high pitch counts? They've got Kluber coming out with 96, 97 pitches. I think in his last start he came out in the 8th with over 100 pitches, maybe sitting at 102 when he came out. Are you concerned about overusage here? It seems like we've had a 13-man, pitching unit here with this, insane amount of relievers, and they all got used up last night, and 2 more here. But are you concerned that usage here with Kluber that, when we get to the playoffs, if we need him like we did last year, is he still going to be able to maintain what he did last year, this year, especially with maybe higher pitch counts we're seeing?
Yeah, I'm concerned, and I don't think last year is repeatable in that he was just like him and Miller and Allen. Like I don't know how much of that is repeatable because it was perfect. I'm concerned. I do think Francona's hands are a little tied in that they just haven't put distance between themselves and the Royals. It'd be a lot easier to be a lot more progressive and protect those arms. I do think if you have a 4-run lead, there's really no reason to pitch Cody Allen. I think we could be a little more conservative with Allen and Miller with leads. But I definitely understand that, we're up 1.5. The Royals are on a tear. We're fighting to hold on. If we were up 4 or 5, I think I'm concerned either way, but I understand Francona being a little longer leash on Kluber right now.
All right, let's swap to the offensive side of things. I think one of the, in many ways, surprises of the 2017 season offensively and defensively, for that matter, has been Bradley Zimmer. You and I, again, I mean, maybe this is the Jim and Mike and Jim miss show. Over the past couple of seasons, you especially have kind of, and I've been right there with you, have notated kind of this.
You wanted to throw me under the bus there. Let's be honest.
Well,
you especially have sucked, sir. You, sir.
Well, if you have sucked, I have bought hook, line, and sinker to it because you write a piece and then I have to write a piece too. And he's a tricky hitter, Mike. I mean, let's be honest. I think there were a couple of concessions that we have to make regarding Zimmer that maybe we didn't take into account. One being just his physical size. I mean, we're talking about a guy who's 6'5", and both you and I talked to Adam Burke quite a bit, and he mentioned this to me, and it just kind of smacked me in the face. I mean, you're talking about a guy who's 6'5". We got a big strike zone. Is part of his K percentage, and I'm not saying a big part of it, but is it enough to make it overtly concerning in that we see it as maybe being more than it is? Is it just a simple fact that his strike zone is so big? Part of the issue, and to go along with the fact that he's been going through this swing change over the past 12 months now, is there perhaps a little bit of inflation there just based on his physical size making his strike zone bigger? Because what we've seen from him this year is true plate discipline. I mean, this is a guy who, of regular players right now, is third on the team and pitches seen per plate appearance. You're looking at a guy right now who, after today's game, is going to actually pass Carlos Santana for third on the team, behind only 2 guys. And we could get really fun into this and talk about the pitchers because we've got some Corey Kluber up there too, but that's beside the point. But you're looking at J-Ram and Edwin Encarnacion as the only 2 guys ahead of him in pitches faced per plate appearance. Is this just one of those amalgams that we're seeing of a guy who's going to strike out a ton, still have a high OBP because he and really work pitchers as the leadoff guy? Is this, I hate to say it because, I may throw you under the bus for this K percentage, but I really went after the comparisons between Zimmer and Grady Sizemore as being ridiculous. But I think we're seeing a little bit of a similarity in that Sizemore was another guy who used to work pitches. Is this a guy we're just going to see as a weird leadoff hitter over the years who really works pitchers in the 5, 6, 7, 8 pitch counts, strikes out a ton, but also gets on base a ton and with tons of power?
Yeah. I also am, because my wife will tell you that I rarely admit that I could be wrong about some things, so I'm going to do that more here.
We've known each other a long time, Mike. We've known each other a long time. I'm glad that I can make you admit things that your wife can't. I'm glad.
But I do think that I will say that in some ways I wasn't wrong. Okay, look, I think Zimmer's awesome. I think he could be a 4 or 5 WAR player. I do think the K percentage is ultimately like the ceiling limiter on him. I think a lot of his offensive value is going to come through his speed and his eye's outstanding. I do think that one thing I really missed is, and and I think some of it has to do with the size of his zone, which may cause this. But you're right; he doesn't chase. His chase percentage is above league average. He's a disciplined hitter. The one thing he does is he swings and misses a lot more than the league average, and I think part of that may be he has a larger zone to cover because I think his pitch recognition is really rock solid. I just think at times he can get a little long, or it may just he looks a little long because he's a massive zone to cover, and that can be pretty challenging. So I definitely think that's an input. I think his pitch recognition is really solid, which makes me think that he can hold up a K percentage like this at the big league level, and I think it also can improve a little bit when your strength, when your pitch recognition is average to above average. You can make little adjustments that are going to improve contact at the margin. So I think, and the other really positive thing is it's not like Naquin where we saw one or two holes that could be exploited and we said, what's he going to do to counter adjust? The positive with Zimmer is really obvious holes right now. He can handle most of the strike zone and he's not chasing. He hasn't shown a weakness with pitches outside the zone because he, sort of commands the strike zone. So in that ways, I think that's really positive in what we've seen so far.
Well, what's interesting to me, and we've talked about this weeks ago, and if you watch his home runs from the past couple of days, both kind of down and away. I noticed early when I started working on this Bradley Zimmer piece, this like 4 month in the making Bradley Zimmer hitting piece. And the one thing I noticed is he was struggling with pitches outside the zone. We're talking about this guy with this massive, reach. And it looked like he was pinching in on his swing. And it was really strange to me. It looks like he was extending a lot more over the past, really, if you watch his swings over the past week or so, those 2 home runs in particular that he rifled, he got the bat through the zone really quick, got his hips out and in. If you were golfing, he'd be hitting the ball 330. He seems to be extending a lot better, and he seems to be getting the bat through. The swing doesn't look as long as it did before. I mean, this is still a process, but what do you see? You talked about his speed. What do you see power-wise for Zimmer going forward? I mean, a lot of people have been making comparisons to, guys like Adam Dunn just because Dunn is similar in size. I mean, obviously defensively they're not the same guy, but could you see a 30 home run guy down the line?
Yep. Yes. Any left-handed hitter with above average power who gets to hit in progressive 81 games a year, I'm going to say yes.
All right, let's talk a little bit about what happens over the next 2 weeks. I mean, we've got the trade deadline coming up here, and I want to talk about that. We'll get into that in a second, but this does feel like one of those seasons where the Indians are looking at the deadline a little bit different than they did last year when they went after Miller and got him, and then went after Lucroy as well. I don't feel that this year, Mike. I feel like they're looking at Kipnis and Chisenhall as being those trades. Maybe Zimmer is one of them as well. You've got those guys coming back. You got Kipnis, who does look like he might be back by August 1st. Which actually scares the hell out of me because a guy who you worry about breaking down as the season progresses coming back early from an injury scares me. But Chisenhall extremely hot heading into his injury, and supposedly he'll be back a week or two after that. Although both are shooting for August 1st. Do you first of all, question, I'm just going to kind of serve it to you and see what you do with it. What do you do when those two guys come back? What's the team going to look like? You've gotten some production from a few guys that you didn't expect. Obviously, I think Urshela is a guy that you're going to move, but I'm just going to volley it to you. When Chisenhall and Kipnis come back, what changes with the roster? And then on the other side of that too, Mike, talk deadline. What are they going to shoot for here? Are they looking for a starter? Is the Salazar start going to be a big deal as opposed to prior to that where you didn't see Salazar doing this? I mean, is another good Salazar start, does that keep us from getting a starter? What do we look for, starter, or is there something else you think the Indians could tackle? So Kipnis and Chisenhall first. How do you see this altering the team going forward, a team that's won 5, possibly 6 in a row as we're talking here? And then what do they shoot for at the deadline to wrap things up today?
All right. Kipnis and Chiz, it's a weird fit. I do think the starting pitcher has been a lot better of late, and I do think that's something that's not entirely disassociated with the reality that Giovanni Urshela is playing third base and Jose Ramirez is playing second base. I think there's some correlation there. But moving on.
You know, that I don't mean to interlude there, but that would be a great piece for someone to write. I'm not writing that piece. I'm just saying that would be a great piece for someone to write who always is looking for ideas. Just saying. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, Jeff Nomina, come on.
Does he? He's one of those video guys. Let's not mince words. Nomina's a video guy. He doesn't even talk to us anymore. Thanks, Jeff.
It's all about clicks now. Yeah.
He uses us. He uses us to drive his clicks, and now he's just gone. He's just gone, Mike. Screw you, Jeff Nomina.
He's buying mansions now, too. It's absurd. He's already using that YouTube fame. But I don't know how it fits. I mean, it's an improvement. I mean, it's nice to see. I think Brandon Guyer's starting to feel it a little bit, so you can do the matchups. Zimmer has to be out in center every day. The Chisenhall-Zimmer right field, center field feels like a really fun defensive pairing. And against right-handed pitching, you know, Brantley, Zimmer, Chisenhall in the outfield, that's awesome. And that makes for a deep lineup 1 through 7. I've been way too down on Kipnis like my whole life. I like Kipnis a lot. I think I underrate him. He doesn't play great defense. And he's been really beat up in the last 3 years. He has a major oblique injury that sinks his 2014 season, or 2015 season. My apologies. You know, he's pretty beat up this year, multiple injuries, some that probably lean towards ones that sap his power. So, you know, Kipnis, I'm really worried about Kipnis long-term at this point. He plays a position that's really physically demanding. Second base has a really tough aging curve because those guys take a lot of hits at second base. And I know that, you know, Major League Baseball's tried to change a little bit to limit sliding rules and everything, but it's just a position where you take a lot of wear and tear. So I think I'm pretty worried about that. That's not an answer at all to your question. It's not good. He'll get slipped back in. He'll get slipped into the leadoff hole. We'll have to watch a month of him in the leadoff hole. I have no idea why the hell we would have to do that, but, you know, the next time Francona says no to a veteran will be the first time. So we'll be watching probably the Indians' 8th best hitter right now. And you know what? I don't like overreacting to 1 year samples. And there are people who are a lot smarter than me who are saying, you know, if you're saying Kipnis is the 8th worst hitter, you're overreacting to a small sample. But I swear to God, this Kipnis is not the same guy we've watched for the past 4 years. I think he's 80% health-wise even when he comes back. And even if they move him back slowly, physically, he just looks pretty worn. And so to me, I do think I'm more in favor of reviewing his season-long numbers than his career-long numbers right now because I think he's not the same dude. And maybe he is next year and maybe he is in a month, but I don't think he is right now.
Well, the key to me, Mike, the key to me here is what they need to do is plug him into 5 spot and then use J-Ram to protect him.
Oh, Christ.
Put J-Ram at 6. And okay, I'm sorry. I can't even we do have to talk about Encarnacion. I want you to talk trade, but just don't let me forget. We got to talk Encarnacion because he's really putting up some impressive numbers. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Trade deadline, Mike.
Nothing interesting, right? I mean, but this is the thing. You and I have. But also, this market's barren. I mean, like, I think Jim and I have different philosophies in terms of, like, how aggressive we'd be and, like, but I also think that we both are of the opinion that Sonny Gray is a pretty risky target. And he's probably the best starting pitcher. Like, we both love Chris Archer. If Chris Archer was on the table, God, I'd move anyone.
Definitively not. Yeah, I mean, the record's better than ours. I don't think
so. He's not. Yeah. So it's Sonny Gray and Blech.
All right. Like, so the Sonny Gray thing. I'm just going to throw this out there, Mike. And is it possible? You know how weird the A's are and Billy Beane and they're scouting our system right now. And you probably know where I'm going with this. Is it possible that they see value in some guys that aren't Tristan McKenzie and aren't Mejia? Is there an outside chance that it could be a big package of players outside the top 2 just because they like guys like, say, Bobby Bradley, like Chang, like maybe some of the younger guys. I mean, this does seem to be an MO of the A's of taking these random sort of guys you wouldn't expect. It seems odd to say that because other teams are going to be involved in Sonny Gray. But Oakland, they pick their teams, and then they go after the guys they want. They're scouting the Indians right now. I mean, that's been widely reported over the past couple of days. They've been scouting the system. Is it possible that Sonny Gray could come over here for a package of players that doesn't include the 2 guys that we don't want them to get rid of?
Yeah, I think it is. And I think, at this point, well, I disagree with it. I'm a huge Bobby Bradley fan. He's made every change I'd ever want. Right now he's viewed as a consensus top 50 prospect by I think most people. And I think that's just, I think Gray's a guy where the centerpiece is probably going to be, one top 50 prospect and then a couple really interesting pieces. For me, to me, first basemen are not top 50 prospects that I'm super interested in. I want middle of the diamond guys. So love Bradley, great adjustments. If it's Bradley and then another good piece and not any of the top 2, let's go. Let's do it. Fine with me.
But do they need Sonny Gray? I mean, me, I want them to go over the top. I don't know that puts them over the top. I mean, I was making a case for maybe going out for some okay relievers, like going out and getting a couple of relievers, like you've seen. You saw Kansas City do it. You saw Chicago do it. You saw Washington do it. Is it possible that the Indians could go out, grab a couple of relievers that are good, to just kind of solidify our pen? It seemed to be maybe a lesson learned last year with Andrew Miller that a solid pen takes you almost to the World Series. We saw Kansas City do it. We see year after year all these teams with fantastic bullpens do it. I'm not saying our bullpen isn't fantastic. It is. But could you see them solidify the lower end of our bullpen or even the middle ground of our bullpen? In theory, it would give some of our top guys some rest, too, in the last 2 months, although we know – Tito, God bless you. You're going to overuse him. But, I mean, is bullpen the route? Is that the way to go? I know they keep talking utility player, but my God, Columbus is built. They have every player at Columbus is a utility guy. What the hell do we need a utility guy for?
Yeah, I think bullpen's the route.
Nunez, though, dude. Nunez was the guy. I saw it today. You got stolen from us. Stolen.
Man, it's hard to get those league average utility players anymore. Yeah, I go bullpen. I think the thing is, the reason I go bullpen is I don't think you can expect a substantively. I just think there's less than a 20% chance that Sonny Gray pitches better in Game 3 of a series than Mike Clevenger or Danny Salazar if they're healthy. And if we're worried about those things, that's different. If there's a smoking gun on either of those guys, fine, go get Sonny Gray. But I think the odds are really narrow that he would actually really outperform either of those guys in a Game 3. So I think you go bullpen because it allows you to be more aggressive. Also because Cody Allen's scaring the hell out of me. To be perfectly honest, he's overused like crazy. He just looks like he needs a week off. And I guess the Indians can't give him one right now because they have a 1.5 game lead. But he and Miller Miller's down about a tick. Allen's now barely touching 94 when he was sitting 95, 96 last year. I think if we're thinking that we can just use them just emptying the chamber every night in the playoffs right now, I think that's probably foolish because they just need some help.
Well, maybe we'll see the Indians surprise us. I still think they spent all their weapon building in the offseason, and I want to talk about Edwin Encarnacion really quick. Since mid-May, he's putting up MVP numbers. I mean, let's be honest. He's hitting over 300. You're seeing that He's doing things I think that we were worried about early in the season with that K rate up. His K rate since mid-May has been sub 20. It's been down to 17. His walk rate's been almost the same. I mean, we got this 34-year-old dude kind of going back 3 or 4 years, 2 years really, to the player he was before we started seeing a slight decline. Power numbers are up. 21 home runs. He's doing every single thing that we paid for, including the walk-off home run. he's doing things too that I think have left him a little underrated. I mean, this is a guy who's got 21 home runs who perhaps it's because he's playing in Cleveland, but I think overall, even Cleveland fans have kind of been sleeping on him because of his rough opening month. How big a deal has Edwin Encarnacion been just to have plugged into the 3 or 4 hole, mostly the 4 hole? And seriously, you just kind of forget about him. When's the last time we had a guy in the middle of our order like that we've just forgotten about? I mean, Travis Hafner. It's been 10 years, right? Like, how big a deal is Edwin Encarnacion plugging the middle been for us? And thank God for J-Ram to protect him, by the way.
Yeah, geez, if Encarnacion hadn't had somebody to protect him for the last 5 years, he wouldn't have been like one of the 5 best hitters in baseball the last 5 years or something. What kind of bullshit is that? Like, it's unreal. That's an unreal answer from a manager. And, like, I actually kind of believe in some ways, like, you and I have talked about this. Joe Madden talked about this, and you brought this up when I used to rant about protection. He said, look, like when David Ortiz is hitting after Manny Ramirez, like, you're damn right the protection matters. But I think that there are some cases where, like, what the hell are we talking about here? Like, we saw, like, a week ago, I saw the Indians with a runner on third and less than 2 outs, and I saw them intentionally walk Edwin Encarnacion to get to J-Ram. And that's fine. But let's be honest with the fact that he's not really protecting him if they're walking him. If they're walking Encarnacion to get to J-Ram. That's not protection.
Can we, I mean, in my head, and this is just me, a simpleton who, I'm just a simple guy, working for WFNY. Wouldn't the protection in a grand scheme of things for all those old school thinkers be the other way around? Wouldn't you want J-Ram, the all-star, protected by the number 4? Isn't that what you go and spend $60 million for 3 years? The guy to protect your true, like, best hitters on the team? Like, am I missing something? Like, if that's the theory you're going with, if you have to protect your $20 million a year guy with J-Ram, shouldn't that be flipped? I mean, when are they? Okay, I promised myself I wouldn't get into this, so I'm going to tone it down a little bit, but I don't know. It seems a little mixed up to me. The theory that they're using seems to be one that should be flipped around. You should be protecting, if you're going to use the term protection, which in the grand scheme is ridiculous. I think, like we've talked about in the past, there's situational, like Madden was talking about. There's situations, especially the playoffs, where you're sitting there staring at J-Ram in the face, looking at Encarnacion standing in the standing in the on-deck circle, a guy who's won the wild card for Toronto last year, guy who blasted a grand slam last night to win games. This is a guy who wins games with one swing. Shouldn't that be the way it works? I mean, am I missing something? And by the way, isn't the most common sense old school thought, get your best hitters more at bats? Ted freaking Williams used to talk about that. Ted Williams, maybe the greatest hitter of all time. But that's beside the point. I'm sorry, my veins are popping out my neck. I apologize. I'm going to calm down now, Mike, and throw it back to you. Edwin Encarnacion. We somehow turned this into a rant about lineup, but how big a deal has he truly been, protection or not?
A pretty big deal, Jim. Just trying to pump out the trite quotes. Yeah, he's been awesome, and especially with Kipnis not being Kipnis and being hurt, and Chisenhall being hurt. Though I never really expected this sort of offensive production from Chisenhall, but it's been awesome. It's just different, and Santana hasn't been Santana yet, and now he's kind of looking like it in the last 3 or 4 games, and it's awesome. I mean, you get Santana clicking at 6, and it's over. Especially, heaven forbid they ever get healthy and have, at some point, if you guys get healthy and you have Chisenhall hitting 7th and maybe Kipnis hitting 8th, like, are you effing kidding me? That's unbelievable. So,
well, I mean, maybe the theory is eventually to have J-Ram hit 9th so we can protect everybody. Because let's be honest.
That's fair.
I mean, if you're going to have a guy protect everybody, it should be J-Ram. By the way, how great is he? How great is he? To all the world who called him a utility guy that we don't give a crap about, give a shit about, screw you. He's an MVP candidate. He's probably not going to finish ahead of Edwin Encarnacion because Encarnacion has more name value. But screw you all. He is not a utility player. Screw you. Okay, there we go. I'm back. We're back. EHC is back. That's why we're called the HC. Screw what I said at the beginning. Oh, man. All right. I think we should end it there. I'm going to let you plug something here in a minute, Mike. I'm going to buy you some time, though. One quick little tidbit. Austin Jackson. I just want to throw this out there. We're kind of watching the close up of their 6th straight win. Is the Indians are just laying it on Anaheim here in the I think it's the 8th, up 8-2. We've had these big innings, but we have Austin Jackson coming back. Austin Jackson has been, again, on the Mike and Jim miss page. He's been amazing this year. I mean, there's really no way about it. I mean, he's hitting the ball well. We talk about plate appearances. This is a guy who's 4.5 pitches per at bat. If he had enough plate appearances, he would be second, I think, behind Encarnacion. Where's this coming from? I mean, I could pull a quote from a guy who you and I both don't respect, who said, Austin Jackson's going to find it this year. Well, I hate to admit it. He kind of sort of did. What's that all about? Is this luck? Is this variance? I think the big word for us this year, Mike, has been variance. What the hell?
I think a big part of it is that for the first time, maybe in his career, he's being used as basically a 90% platoon bat. So his offense looks awesome. I mean, he's someone who used to play against righties and lefties all the time. Now a predominant portion of his at-bats are against lefties, which he looks awesome. He crushes lefties. So I think that's a big part of it. I don't think he can play defense and center anymore, but he's been awesome. I mean, he's been really disciplined. He's been great. I got nothing. He's been really good.
Well, we'll kind of wrap things up there. I want you to plug something. Tune in to, I suspect, if anything goes down, Mike and I will probably be throwing the podcast up with the trade deadline. We've been playing around with some strange ideas, with big life events, with actually what might be 2 moves coming up for the both of us. The next few months are going to be interesting for the both of us is regarding podcasts, but I suspect in the coming days, if the Indians do make a move, we'll probably throw another podcast up here. I think the one wild card in all this, Mike, is that the Indians are playing to keep the window. They're playing for now. I mean, they made moves last year. They made moves this offseason to win now. I think if they see a guy out there to break things open, they'll do it. So who knows? They could surprise us here in the next couple of days with a big move. And I wouldn't consider Sonny Gray a big move, although he is probably the best available starter out there. But if another big move comes out, maybe they go out for a Brad Hand. Still, I think they're going to maybe get a couple of relievers. That's probably the route they're going to go. I just hope they don't bring in some rink-dink utility guy. Is Drupal Cabrera? Are you kidding? Anyways, all right. Anything you want to plug over the coming days, Mike? I'd plug your piece first, but I suspect you're probably going to throw that out there. But is there anything else you want to plug?
I loved your gamer last night. For those who didn't read it, Jim wrote a gamer for last night's game, which also I loved it because I didn't have to write it. Because gamers are the worst. And B, Jim wrote
he's doing this because it was supposed to be his gamer. Don't think I'm not fooled. He's trying to get me to do it like.
It's true, but it was also an awesome gamer because Jim dropped some super dope nuggets about a couple of defensive plays, specifically a couple of plays from Zimmer and a couple of plays from Brantley. Jim and I have some hot takes about Brantley's defense.
How was that a 5-star catch? I'm sorry. Go ahead. I
have a theory about this, actually. I have a theory. So one of the tough things with that is it's based on location in terms of whatever. One of the tough things about Cleveland and rating left field is that positioning in left field for Cleveland Indians outfielders is really different because it's sort of like Fenway in that the wall is shallower, it's a lot higher, you can play a little shallower, and I think that's a ball that distance-wise in another park, the outfielder would be playing greater distance from that. So I have a weird theory about that, but I think that relates to it. But yeah, read Jim's gamer. I wrote about Cody Allen and his arm potentially erupting in flames. You can read that. I guess I'm going to have to write something for some game that's on Thursday, tomorrow night, but it probably won't be very exciting.
Well, don't forget it's a day game, so yeah, you could be done by 5.
I won't be writing it then.
You could be done by 5. Oh, yeah, you work. All right. The only other thing I want to plug is while we were ripping on Jeff earlier, he's making a concerted effort to improve the videos. That I know that's the touchstone word right now of death. But we are never going to stop writing at WFNY, and Jeff's looking at some video content as well. We're just trying to cover all of the bases because there's really no reason to do one and not the other. So check out Jeff's WFNY short takes on our YouTube channel, and I don't have the address for it, but just go into the WFNY site, the waitingfornextyear.com site, and check it out. Of course, check out all the podcasts. Mike and I are going to we haven't potted in a long time, and I don't think either one of us know why, but we're going to try to kick this up a notch and throw up some audio content on a regular basis so that we get our tribe talks in. I honestly think if Mike and I could find the time, we'd do it every day if we could. So look for us 2 or 3 times a week. I know there's a lot of other Indians podcasts out there now since last we podcasted, but I do think that Mike and I, and we've been doing this now. This is right around our 200th episode, from CSI to IBI to WFNY. So I do think we have a unique take. We're pretty passionate about it, but we do have 2 completely different takes. Mike comes from the analytical sense. I come from maybe the old school sense. And Mike and I have always kind of melded in the middle. So listen to our podcast. Let's try to drive some numbers up for us, and we'll keep doing this for you. So tune in WFNY, check out Mike's stuff, check out my stuff, check out Nam's stuff. We've been writing a ton, so check it out. We'll have a ton at the deadline, and I don't know, maybe the next time we talk, we'll still be streaking. I mean, we're going to tie our streak record with 6 this year, Mike. 6. I'm just worried we're going to lose 5 out of the next 6, but that's beside the point. Yeah, I had to put that in there.
YOLO.
All right. Closing up shop. We'll see you soon.